My dad said, "You have to work while your sister enjoys. It's that simple. And if you don't like it, get out," while Mom backed her up. So I said, "Great. Then I'll leave, and you can pay your own bills. It's that simple." I need to get this off my chest because I'm still processing everything that happened. This situation has been building for years, but it all came to a head 3 months ago in the most spectacular way possible. Growing up, I always knew my parents favored my older sister, Tessa. It wasn't subtle. She got the bigger bedroom, the nicer clothes, the family vacations planned around her interests. I told myself it didn't matter, that I'd prove myself through hard work and independence. What I didn't realize was that my parents weren't just playing favorites, they were actively building a financial structure that depended entirely on me being their personal ATM. Let me back up. I'm 28 now, and Tessa is 32. Our childhood was a masterclass in unequal treatment. When Tessa wanted piano lessons, our parents bought a baby grand that took up half our living room. When I asked for art supplies, Dad handed me a pack of crayons from the dollar store and told me to be grateful. Tessa went to sleepaway camp every summer while I stayed home and helped Mom with yard work. The pattern was clear, but I kept thinking things would change once we were adults. They didn't. I went to state college on a partial scholarship and worked 3 jobs to cover the rest. Tessa went to a private university that cost $60,000 a year, fully funded by our parents. She studied communications, partied through most of her classes, and graduated with a 2.7 GPA. I majored in accounting, made the dean's list every semester, and walked across that stage knowing I'd earned every single credit myself. After graduation, I landed a solid job at a mid-sized firm in Portland. The salary wasn't incredible, but it was steady, and I was good at what I did. I moved into a modest apartment and started building my life. Tessa, meanwhile, moved back home. She claimed she needed time to find herself and explore her options. What she actually did was sleep until noon, spend my parents' money on brunch with friends, and occasionally apply for jobs she was drastically underqualified for. This went on for 2 years. Then came the first phone call. Dad called me on a Tuesday evening, his voice carrying that tone he used when he was about to ask for something he knew I wouldn't want to give. "Sweetheart, your mother and I need to talk to you about something important." My stomach dropped. "Is everything okay?" "Well, that depends on your definition of okay," he said, attempting a laugh that came out strained. "We've hit a bit of a rough patch financially. The roof needs replacing, and the medical bills from your mother's surgery last year are still piling up. We were hoping you could help us out for a few months. Just until we get back on our feet." I should have asked more questions. I should have demanded to see their finances, should have wondered why 2 people with decent retirement savings and a paid-off house suddenly couldn't afford basic repairs. But I loved my parents, despite everything, and the thought of them struggling made my chest tight. "How much do you need?" "Maybe $2,000 a month? Just temporarily." $2,000 was a significant chunk of my income, but I agreed. Family helps family, right? That's what I'd been raised to believe, even if the help had only ever flowed in one direction. The temporary arrangement lasted 4 years. Every month, I sent money home. Sometimes it was $2,000. Sometimes Dad would call with an emergency, the car broke down, the furnace died, the water heater needed replacing, and I'd send more. I started picking up freelance accounting work on weekends to make ends meet. My apartment was a 1-bedroom in a questionable neighborhood because it was all I could afford after supporting my parents. I wore the same professional clothes until they were threadbare, patched them up, and kept wearing them. My diet consisted mostly of rice, beans, and whatever vegetables were on sale. I told myself it was worth it because I was helping my family survive. Meanwhile, Tessa finally got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. She worked part-time, maybe 25 hours a week, and still lived at home rent-free. On social media, her life looked like a lifestyle blogger's dream. Constant posts from trendy restaurants, weekend trips to wine country, photos of expensive skincare products, and designer handbags. I couldn't understand how she afforded any of it on a receptionist's salary, but I was too exhausted to think about it too hard. The truth started revealing itself last Thanksgiving. I drove home for the holiday, something I did maybe twice a year because I couldn't afford more time off work or gas money for frequent trips. The moment I walked through the door, I noticed something was different. The living room had new furniture, a plush sectional sofa that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The kitchen had been renovated with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Through the window, I could see a brand new deck stretching across the backyard. Mom caught me staring. Beautiful, isn't it? We finally decided to make some updates. The house was looking so dated. I thought you couldn't afford the roof repairs, I said slowly. Oh, we took care of that months ago. She waved her hand dismissively. Your father got a good deal on the contractor. Something cold settled in my stomach. How did you pay for all of this? We've been very careful with our money, Dad interjected, walking in from the garage. Plus, we had some savings we could tap into. But you told me you were broke. I wanted to scream. Instead, I excused myself and went to the bathroom, where I sat on the closed toilet lid and tried to calm my racing thoughts. Maybe they'd gotten an insurance payout. Maybe a relative had died and left them money. There had to be an explanation that didn't involve the obvious conclusion forming in my mind. Dinner was tense, at least for me. Tessa showed up late, breezily apologizing while showing off a new bracelet her boyfriend had bought her. She worked part-time and had a boyfriend who bought her expensive jewelry while I worked 60-hour weeks and hadn't been on a date in 2 years because I was too tired and broke. After the meal, I helped Mom clear the dishes. Tessa disappeared into the living room, and I could hear her laughing on the phone with someone. Dad retreated to his office, leaving Mom and me alone in the kitchen with its gleaming new fixtures. Mom, I said carefully, I need to ask you something. What is it, honey? The money I've been sending you every month. What exactly has it been going toward? Her hand stilled in the dishwater. I told you, bills and expenses. What expenses? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been doing major renovations. She turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw something like guilt flicker across her features. But it vanished quickly, replaced by defensiveness. We're allowed to improve our home. We've worked hard our entire lives. I'm not saying you aren't. I'm asking how you can afford renovations when you told me you were struggling to pay for basic repairs. Your father and I know how to manage our money. Then why do you need mine? The question hung in the air between us. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. She turned back to the dishes without answering. I left the next morning, earlier than planned, claiming I had work obligations. The 5-hour drive home gave me plenty of time to think. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, I'd made a decision. I needed to know exactly where my money was going. The following Monday, I started digging into public records. Property tax records are public information, and a quick search on the county assessor's website showed no mortgage lien on my parents' house. It had been paid off for 7 years. I called the utility companies next, using information I'd gathered over years of sending them money, account numbers I'd seen on bills they'd forwarded to me as proof of their expenses. Their average monthly bills, electric, water, gas combined, came to maybe $300. Then I did something I'm not proud of, but don't regret. I drove back home the next weekend when I knew my parents would be at their Saturday golf game. Years ago, Mom had told me where they kept the spare key, under a fake rock by the back porch, in case of emergencies. I'd never needed to use it until now. I let myself in and went straight to Dad's office. His filing system was meticulous, which made everything easier and so much worse. I found bank statements going back 5 years. There were the deposits I'd been making, regular as clockwork, $2,000 a month. Sometimes more. In total, I'd given them over $90,000 in 4 years. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold: their account never dropped below $20,000. Not once. They had savings, investments, retirement accounts that were healthy and growing. They didn't need my money. They had never needed my money. I kept digging, my hands shaking as I photographed pages with my phone. Credit card statements showed purchases at high-end furniture stores, the contractor who'd done their renovations, regular expensive dinners out. And there, highlighted in yellow on a statement from 3 months ago, was a transaction that made everything click into place: transfer to Tessa, $3,000. They were taking my money and giving it to my sister. I went through more statements. The pattern was clear and consistent. Nearly every month, there was a transfer to Tessa, ranging from $1,000 to $5,000. My money wasn't going to medical bills or emergency repairs. It was subsidizing Tessa's lifestyle while she worked part-time and played pretend adult. I photographed everything. Every bank statement, every credit card bill, every transfer to Tessa's account. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, locked the door behind me, and drove home in a fugue state. For 2 weeks, I didn't send my usual payment. I didn't call to explain or give a heads up. I just stopped. Dad called on the 15th, exactly when the money usually hit their account. "Hey sweetheart, just checking in. We didn't receive your transfer this month." "I know," I said flatly. Silence. Then, "Is everything all right? Are you having money trouble?" The irony almost made me laugh. "No, Dad. I'm fine. I'm just not sending money anymore." "What? Why not? We depend on that money." "For what, exactly? Your paid-off house? Your healthy savings account? Or maybe to keep funding Tessa's shopping habit?" More silence. I could practically hear him calculating whether to deny or admit. "I don't know what you're talking about," he finally said. "I have bank statements that say otherwise. I know everything. The renovations, the transfers to Tessa, all of it. You've been lying to me for 4 years. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. I've been killing myself working 2 jobs so you could tell me you were struggling while you renovated your house and handed my money to Tessa. Did you think I'd never find out?" His tone shifted from defensive to angry. "What we do with our money is our business. It's my money, Dad. Money I earned. Money I sent because I thought you needed it. Your sister needs support right now. She's finding her way, and we're helping her. That's what parents do. You never helped me find my way. I worked 3 jobs through college while you paid for everything for Tessa. That's different. Tessa needs more help. She's not as capable as you." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not as capable. They'd been punishing me my entire life for being responsible, for being independent, for not needing them to hold my hand through basic adulting. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm not sending any more money. Figure it out yourselves. If that's how you feel, then maybe you should reconsider whether you're part of this family at all." I hung up. Mom called 2 hours later. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. After the 5th call, I answered. "How could you do this to us?" She demanded, no greeting, no pretense of concern. "Your father told me what you said. I raised you better than this. You raised me to work myself to death while you pampered Tessa. Seems like I learned the lesson pretty well. Tessa is struggling. Tessa is 32 years old with a part-time job and no responsibilities because you've enabled her entire life. I was supporting myself completely by 22. Everyone's path is different. You're right. My path involved being lied to and stolen from by my own parents. We never stole anything. That money was a gift. A gift you obtained under false pretenses. You told me you were struggling. You told me you needed help with medical bills and emergency repairs. You lied. We are your parents. We don't owe you explanations for how we spend money. Then I don't owe you monthly payments. Funny how that works." She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, taking on the syrupy sweet tone she used when she wanted something. "Sweetheart, I think we all need to calm down and discuss this rationally. Why don't you come home this weekend and we'll talk it through?" "There's nothing to talk through. I'm done being your cash cow. Your father and I have counted on this money. We've made financial commitments based on it. Then you'll need to adjust your commitments. Like I had to adjust mine every time you called with another emergency. If you stop helping us, we'll have to cut back on everything. We might even lose the house." I almost laughed. "Your paid-off house that you've been renovating with my money?" "I don't think so, Mom. But good try. You're being incredibly selfish right now." "I'm being selfish? I've given you $90,000 over 4 years. I've lived in a crappy apartment and eaten rice and beans for dinner so you could install granite countertops. We're your family. Family helps each other." "You're right. So when do I get help? When does the money flow the other direction? When do you sacrifice for me the way you've always sacrificed for Tessa, the way you've demanded I sacrifice for all of you?" She had no answer for that. "That's what I thought," I said. Lose my number. I blocked them both. For 3 days, I felt lighter than I had in years. Then the emails started. Dad sent long, rambling messages about family loyalty and responsibility. Mom sent guilt-laden forwards about ungrateful children. Tessa, who apparently had finally been informed of the situation, sent a short message, "Can't believe you'd abandon Mom and Dad like this. Guess I never really knew you." I blocked all their emails. But blocking them digitally didn't stop the assault from other angles. Tessa created a fake Instagram account to send me long voice messages about how I was tearing the family apart. I recognized her voice immediately, the way it got shrill when she was upset, like nails on a chalkboard. She claimed Mom had been crying for days, that Dad wasn't sleeping, that I was destroying them over a misunderstanding about money. A misunderstanding? As if accidentally giving someone the wrong change was equivalent to 4 years of calculated deception. I saved all the messages, just in case, then blocked that account too. The next wave came from family friends. Mrs. Patricia Henley, who'd known my parents for 20 years, called to tell me she was disappointed in my behavior. "Your parents are good people who made sacrifices to raise you girls," she said, her voice dripping with judgment. "Whatever disagreement you're having, family should forgive." I wanted to ask if she'd forgive someone who stole $90,000 from her, but I just thanked her for her concern and ended the call. These people didn't know the real story. They only knew the version my parents had fed them, where I was the ungrateful daughter who'd cruelly withdrawn support from her struggling parents. Work became my sanctuary. My boss, Kenneth, noticed I seemed more focused, more present. "Whatever you're doing differently, keep it up," he said during my quarterly review. "Your productivity is up 15%. What I was doing differently was sleeping through the night instead of lying awake calculating how to stretch my paycheck to cover everyone else's lives. I was eating actual meals instead of rationing food. My brain wasn't constantly running worst-case scenarios about my parents losing their home or going hungry, scenarios they deliberately planted in my mind. I started putting money into savings for the first time in years. Watching that number climb felt surreal. $500. $1,000. $2,000. Money that was mine, that would sit there for my own emergencies, my own future, my own dreams I'd put on hold indefinitely. One particularly difficult evening, about 3 weeks into the silence, I broke down and called my college roommate, Allison. She'd moved to Denver after graduation, and we'd kept in touch sporadically. I told her everything. "Jesus," she breathed when I finished. "I knew your family dynamic was weird, but I had no idea it was that bad." I didn't either. Or maybe I did, and I just kept making excuses for them. "You know what I remember?" Allison said. "Junior year, when my car broke down and my parents wired me money for repairs the same day. You seemed genuinely shocked that they'd just help me like that. No guilt trip, no strings attached. I thought it was weird at the time, but now it makes sense." Her words cracked something open in my chest. I'd normalized my parents' conditional love for so long that genuine parental support looked strange to me. While Allison's parents had simply helped their daughter because she needed it, mine had only ever helped Tessa, and they'd funded that help by exploiting me. "What are you going to do long term?" Allison asked gently. "I don't know. Keep living my life, I guess. Let them figure out theirs. You're allowed to be angry, you know. You don't have to be the bigger person right away. Permission to be angry." Such a simple thing, but I realized no one had ever given me that before. I'd been expected to be understanding, flexible, mature. The responsible one doesn't get to have messy emotions. "I am angry," I admitted. "I'm furious. But I also feel guilty, which makes me even angrier." "The guilt will fade," Allison promised. "Give it time." About a week after that conversation, something interesting happened at work. Jennifer, one of my colleagues, invited me to lunch. We'd always been friendly but never particularly close. Over sandwiches, she confided that she'd noticed I seemed different lately. "You're going to think this is weird," she said, "but you seem lighter. Like someone lifted a weight off your shoulders." I found myself telling her an abbreviated version of what had happened. Jennifer listened intently, her expression shifting from surprise to recognition. "My brother went through something similar," she said when I finished. "Not exactly the same, but close enough. His parents convinced him to co-sign loans for his sister, told him it was temporary, that she'd pay them back. 3 years and $40,000 later, he discovered she defaulted and his credit was destroyed. What did he do? Cut them all off completely. Hasn't spoken to any of them in 5 years. He says it's the best decision he ever made. She paused, studying my face. I'm not saying that's what you should do. But I am saying that people who treat you like an ATM don't usually turn into people who value you as a human being. Her words echoed in my mind for days. Was there any realistic scenario where my parents genuinely changed? Where they saw me as something other than the responsible daughter whose purpose was to solve their problems and subsidize their favorite child? The financial impact of stopping the payments became clearer as weeks passed. I paid off my credit cards, which I'd been carrying balances on for years because I could never quite make more than the minimum payment. The interest I'd been hemorrhaging monthly made me physically ill when I calculated the total. Thousands of dollars gone because I'd been stretched so thin supporting people who didn't need supporting. I opened a retirement account and set up automatic contributions. My future self deserved security, deserved the planning and care I'd been giving to my parents present. The apartment hunt was almost therapeutic. I looked at places with actual amenities, dishwashers, air conditioning, parking spaces. The first time a landlord showed me a unit with in-unit laundry, I nearly cried. For years, I'd been hauling my clothes to a laundromat 6 blocks away, feeding quarters into machines, because my apartment building's facilities had been broken for 2 years. I signed a lease on a 1-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with reliable heat and a responsive maintenance staff. The rent was $800 more than my old place, but I could afford it now. Easily. The moving truck cost money I would have agonized over 6 months ago. Now I paid it without flinching. Tessa somehow found out about my move. I suspect Mom drove by my old apartment and noticed the for rent sign, then put 2 and 2 together. My sister sent a text from yet another new number. Must be nice to afford a fancy new place while Mom and Dad suffer. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. Must be nice to be 32 and never have paid your own bills. She didn't text back. The guilt came in waves, usually late at night. I'd lie in my new bed, in my new apartment, and wonder if I was being too harsh. They were my parents. They'd raised me, fed me, kept a roof over my head. Didn't I owe them something? But then I'd remember the way Dad's voice had sounded when he said Tessa needed more help because she wasn't as capable as me. I'd think about every time I'd skipped meals to make the math work, every time I'd walked instead of taking the bus to save $2, every time I'd canceled plans with friends because I couldn't afford to go out. I'd been capable because I'd had no choice. And they punished me for it. My therapist, Dr. Laura Morrison, helped me reframe the guilt. Your parents made choices, she said during one session. They chose to lie to you. They chose to take your money under false pretenses. They chose to give that money to your sister. At any point, they could have chosen differently. They could have been honest. They could have asked if you could afford to help. They could have split their financial support equally between you and Tessa. They didn't do any of those things. But they're family, I said, the old programming kicking in. Family is supposed to mean mutual love and support. What you're describing is a one-way extraction system where you provide and they take. That's not family. That's exploitation with a DNA connection. Her words were harsh but true. I needed to hear them, needed someone to validate that my anger was justified, that walking away wasn't cruel or selfish. Around week 5, my Uncle Gerald called. Unlike everyone else, he didn't want to lecture me or guilt me into reconciliation. He wanted to apologize. I should have said something years ago, he told me. I watched your parents treat you and Tessa differently your whole lives. I told myself it wasn't my business, that every family has their own dynamic. I was wrong. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. The apology caught me off guard. I'd been bracing for judgment for so long that genuine support felt foreign. I talked to your dad, Gerald continued. Really talked to him. He's not ready to admit what he did was wrong, not fully, but he's starting to see it. Your mom, though. She's dug in. She genuinely believes Tessa deserves more help and that you should provide it. Because I'm capable, I said bitterly. Because she's never seen you as someone who needs support. You've been the parent since you were a kid, and she's been comfortable with that arrangement. After we hung up, I thought about what he'd said. I'd been parentified young, assigned responsibilities and emotional labor that should have belonged to adults. I'd been the mediator, the problem solver, the one who kept things running smoothly. And when I'd aged into actual adulthood, that role had simply evolved into being the family bank. The real shift came when I finally looked at what I wanted my life to be. Not what my parents wanted, not what Tessa needed, not what family obligation demanded. Just me, my life, my future. I wanted to travel. I'd never left the country, barely left the state. I started researching trips, browsing travel blogs, imagining myself in places I'd only seen in pictures. I wanted to date, maybe find a real relationship. The guy from the coffee shop, Nathan, had turned into regular dates. He was kind, funny, and when I'd eventually told him about my family situation, he'd been supportive without trying to fix it. I wanted hobbies. I signed up for a pottery class at the community center. I bought actual art supplies, nice ones, and started painting again for the first time since high school. I wanted to live in a space that felt like home. I bought plants, real furniture, kitchen equipment that wasn't from a thrift store. I hung art on the walls. I made my apartment into a place I loved coming home to. Every single one of these wants had been impossible when I was sending $2,000 a month to people who didn't need it. Then they started showing up at my apartment. I came home from work one evening to find Dad sitting on the stairs outside my building. He stood when he saw me, his face haggard. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't. Please. Just give me 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let him inside. We sat in my tiny living room, him on my second-hand couch, me on the folding chair I used at my kitchen table because I couldn't afford real dining furniture. He looked around my apartment, really seeing it for the first time. The peeling linoleum in the kitchen. The water stain on the ceiling from a leak my landlord never properly fixed. The single towel hanging in the bathroom visible through the open door. "I didn't realize you were living like this," he said quietly. "Why would you? You never visited. Never asked. Just called when you needed money." I thought. "Your job pays well." I assumed. "You assumed I had plenty left over after sending you $2,000 a month. I don't. This is what I can afford. This is what my life looks like when I'm supporting 3 other adults." His face crumpled. For a moment, I thought he might actually apologize, might acknowledge what they'd done. Instead, he said, "You have to understand. Tessa isn't like you. She needs help. She needs accountability. She needs to grow up. And you and Mom need to stop sacrificing my well-being for hers. We never meant for you to struggle. But you didn't care enough to check if I was. You just took the money and assumed I was fine because I've always been fine. Because I've had to be." He left 20 minutes later, no closer to understanding than when he'd arrived. Mom tried next. She caught me at the grocery store the following weekend. I was comparing prices on pasta, calculating whether I could afford the name brand now that I wasn't sending my paycheck home, when she appeared at the end of the aisle. "We need to discuss this situation," she said, her voice tight. "There's nothing to discuss. Your father is falling apart. The stress of this is affecting his health." Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it down. "Then he should see a doctor. You have good insurance. We have bills, expenses. No, you have renovations and transfers to Tessa. That's not the same thing as bills. How dare you judge how we spend our money? It's my money you're spending." People were staring now. Mom's face flushed, but she lowered her voice. "If you don't start helping again, your father and I will have no choice but to take legal action." "For what?" "I gave you money voluntarily. You can't sue me for stopping. We'll find a way. We'll tell everyone what you've done, how you've abandoned your family. Go ahead. I have 4 years of bank statements and proof that you lied about why you needed money. I'm sure everyone will be very understanding." She left in tears, but I felt hollowed out rather than victorious. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I got a call from my Aunt Paula, Mom's sister. We'd always had a cordial relationship, though we weren't close. "I need you to know what your parents are telling people," she said without preamble. My stomach sank. "What are they saying?" "That you've cut them off financially without warning and they're about to lose everything." Your mother called me crying, asking to borrow money for groceries. That's a lie. They have plenty of money. I figured as much. Your mother has never been a good liar, and some of her details didn't add up. But she's calling everyone in the family, painting you as this heartless daughter who abandoned them in their time of need. Rage, white hot and consuming, flooded through me. They've been taking my money for 4 years and giving it to Tessa while pretending they were broke. I have proof. I believe you. I've watched them favor Tessa your whole life. But you should know they're doing damage to your reputation. That evening, I composed an email. I attached every relevant bank statement, every transfer to Tessa, every credit card charge for luxury items. I wrote a detailed timeline of their lies. And I sent it to every member of my extended family, with a clear subject line: the truth about my parents' financial situation. The fallout was immediate. Paula called to say she was horrified but not surprised. Several cousins reached out with support. My uncle Gerald, Dad's brother, called my father directly and, from what I heard later, absolutely tore into him. Mom called me screaming, "How could you air our private business to the entire family? How could you lie to the entire family about me? You wanted to ruin my reputation, so I provided context. You've humiliated us. You've been stealing from me for 4 years. I'd say we're even." Dad got on the phone. "You have to work while your sister enjoys. It's that simple. And if you don't like it, get out." The words were so absurd, so blatantly unfair, that I almost laughed. "Great," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Then I'll leave, and you can pay your own bills. It's that simple." I hung up. For the next month, my phone blew up with calls from Tessa. I finally answered one out of morbid curiosity. "You've ruined everything," she shrieked. "Mom and Dad cut me off because of you." "No, Mom and Dad cut you off because they can't afford to give you my money anymore. I needed that money. I have expenses. Get a full-time job, Tessa. Join the rest of us in the real world. You're just jealous because they love me more." The accusation should have hurt, but it didn't. You're right. They do love you more. They love you so much they've handicapped you completely. You're 32 and can't support yourself. Congratulations on winning. She was still screaming when I hung up. The weeks that followed were hard. I grieved the family I'd wanted, the parents who might have loved me equally, the sister who could have been a friend instead of a competitor I never agreed to compete against. I went to therapy, finally able to afford it without the monthly drain of supporting 3 other adults. My therapist helped me understand that my parents' treatment wasn't about my worth. They'd parentified me from a young age, assigned me the role of the responsible one, the one who didn't need support. And once I'd proven I could handle being neglected, they doubled down, taking advantage of my competence and self-sufficiency. 3 months later, I'm still not speaking to any of them. My bank account is healthier than it's been in years. I moved to a nicer apartment, one with working heat and no water stains. I bought new clothes for work. I went on a date with a guy from the coffee shop near my office, and we're seeing each other again next week. Last week, I got a letter from Dad. Not an email, an actual handwritten letter. In it, he apologized for taking me for granted. He acknowledged they'd lied and that it was wrong. He said he understood if I never wanted to speak to them again, but he hoped someday I might forgive them. He didn't ask for money. I don't know if I'll respond. Part of me wants to believe people can change, that my parents might actually recognize what they did. But a bigger part of me knows that years of being the family ATM, the responsible one, the one who didn't need love or support because she was too busy providing it to everyone else, can't be fixed with one letter. Maybe someday I'll be ready to have a relationship with them again. Maybe I'll never be ready. Either way, I'm done setting myself on fire to keep them warm. As for Tessa, I heard through Paula that she finally got a full-time job. She's apparently struggling with the adjustment of having to work 40 hours a week like a normal adult. I can't bring myself to feel sorry for her. I've learned something important through all of this: being the responsible child, the capable one, the one who has it all together doesn't mean you have to be the one who sacrifices everything. You can be strong and still have boundaries. You can love your family and still protect yourself from their dysfunction. My parents taught me I had to work while Tessa enjoyed. They thought that dynamic was sustainable, that I keep funding their favoritism forever. They were wrong.